Pearl lanterns glimmered along the covered corridor that linked the Imperial Observatory to the Palace of Purple Radiance, and Jin Zheng kept his gaze fixed on their reflections in the lacquered floor, so nobody would notice his shaking hands. 4 days remained until the night of the Weeping Phoenix, when, according to tablets 200 years old, the crimson meteor shower would crest the sky and point quite literally to the woman destined to become the next Empress of Great Qi. Such grand pronouncements were usually the province of storytellers, but this one carried the seal of Emperor Gaozu himself. Gaozu had founded the dynasty after following a falling star from the frontier to the capital site. Ever since, each shower of note was interpreted as a heavenly decree. A week earlier, when Jin's new bronze astrolabe confirmed that the crimson meteors would return at last, the Ministry of Rites had all but shoved him into a golden palanquin and paraded him through the court of literary worthies. The emperor, though bedridden by a lingering fever, had ordered that Jin present his completed augury on the eve of the shower. If the astronomer's calculations named a suitable consort, noble of blood, unsullied by scandal, would rejoice. If they pointed elsewhere, trouble would bloom like mold in summer. And trouble, Jin feared, was exactly what awaited, because the celestial traces he had plotted pointed not to a duchess or a princess, but to Ru Yi, a tea-serving girl who carried kettles through the observatory each dusk, humming provincial ballads, while Jin pretended to examine sextants, long after the other scholars had retired. He loved Ru Yi. He loved the way she poured water with the care of an alchemist, how she laughed when he compared her freckles to minor constellations, how she set aside the last chrysanthemum cakes for him because thinkers forget to eat. But heaven's choice? Empress? It was absurd enough to spark mutiny. A sandaled foot scraped behind him. Minister Han, whose beard resembled iron filings, paced at Jin's shoulder. Master astronomer, remember that a nation's spine rests on your ink. I remember, Excellency. We need a name that pleases both the Emperor and the Archdukes. Preferably Princess Xuan, or at worst, Lady Meng. Chengde Province is restless. If either family gains the throne, they'll donate another regiment to the northern walls. Jin opened his mouth, closed it, and halted beneath a carved beam. Surely the stars smile upon one of those houses? Their orbits stray, somewhat, Jin muttered. Han's eyes narrowed. I suggest you make them unstray. The court likes marvels only when marvels uphold tradition. He strode off, leaving the threat unstated. If Jin presented an inconvenient marvel, he would be dismissed, perhaps imprisoned, perhaps worse. Snow slanted across the courtyard by the time Jin slipped through the servants' gate of the observatory. Wind rattled bamboo windows. He climbed a spiral stair to the viewing deck, where a solitary lantern traced shaky halos over brass instruments. Ru Yi knelt beside a brazier, coaxing charcoal to life. When she saw him, her whole face brightened, as though another lantern had been lit. Master Jin, you missed supper again. He managed a smile. The ministry embraces my company, or perhaps my calculations. I brought sweet bean buns. She offered a lidded basket. Steam kissed the air. He set the basket down untouched. Rui, do you believe in omens? Her dark brows rose. Omens are for people who can afford them. We common folk trust calluses and warm fires. What if an omen came for you whether you wished it or not? She chuckled. Then I would tell the omen to pour its own tea. He pictured palace eunuchs bowing before her, painted ladies fastening dragon clasps at her collar. She would hate it. Suppose, he said softly, suppose the crimson meteors marked their landing with a scarlet ray, and suppose that ray pointed at the woman standing in this very chamber. Rui blinked. Me? She laughed again, a note higher, swiftly damped. That's enough riddles, Master Jin. Eat before the buns cool. He couldn't, words twisted in his throat. Tomorrow he owed the emperor a scroll with her name. The moment it was read aloud, 50 factions would scramble, either to claim her or to erase her. Rui, leave the capital tonight. Take the south road. Stay with your aunt in Yutong. Tell no one. The brazier cracked. Outside, a gust slammed shutters. I have 60 coppers to my name, she said. If I flee now, I'll be branded a thief. And why would I leave when you remain? Because if you remain, you will die, he wanted to scream. Instead, he clasped her hands. Trust me. Heaven's whim is crueler than any minister. She searched his face, then withdrew her hands gently. When you craft the sky into maps, do you also craft people into shapes they never chose? Jin recoiled as if struck. That is the opposite of my oath. Then I'll stay, for I have chosen this place and chosen you. She touched his cheek. Her fingers were warm, despite the night. He leaned into that warmth until hoofbeats clattered in the courtyard below. Lanterns flared. Voices shouted his name. The summons had arrived. Silk partitions muffled the imperial bedchamber. Incense bitter with ginseng smoke coiled around the emperor's canopy. Gaozu lay propped on brocade pillows, skin gray as old parchment, yet his eyes gleamed with the same iron that had once rallied armies. Kneeling on lacquered boards, Jin presented 3 bamboo tubes, star charts, trajectory diagrams, the augural verse demanded by tradition. Grand Secretary Luo unrolled each tube with glacial ceremony, while ministers craned forward. The omen? The emperor rasped. Jin felt every gaze like a hooked pin. He bowed until his forehead kissed the floor. Your Majesty, the crimson meteors will trace a crimson beam over the court of sublime harmony. Where that light falls, there heaven's choice stands. According to calculations, the epicenter lies, he swallowed, in the western gallery, among the humble attendants. The chamber buzzed. Luo snapped the scroll shut. Surely His Majesty misheard. The gallery houses kitchen girls and sweepers. The heavens do not err, Jin said, forcing steel into his voice. Their patterns converge upon one individual, whose birth hour aligns precisely with the 9th moment of the 9th day, under a waning crescent. Princess Suen rose, silk rustling like restless reeds. Which family claims the girl? Jin lifted his head. She is named Rui of Lingxi, daughter of a charcoal seller. Suen's mouth curled. Han's jaw clenched. High Consort Meng let out a brittle laugh. An empress who smells of tea leaves. The emperor silenced them with a lifted finger. And you believe this, master astronomer? Jin met Gaozu's eyes. In them he saw exhaustion, but also a curious spark. Perhaps the same hunger for sign and story that had once led the young rebel king across battlefields, guided only by a falling star. I believe, Jin said, that heaven has spoken. Whether we heed it determines our dynasty's fate. Gaozu exhaled, a wheezing growl. Then we shall test heaven. Bring the girl to the pavilion of arcane lights for tomorrow's vigil. If, at the height of the shower, the crimson beam strikes her, all will bow. If not, I will personally order your exile beyond the desert. Jin tamped down the tremor in his chest. As your Majesty commands. Rui did not protest when palace guards escorted her from the observatory. She did not protest when seamstresses draped her in ice moon gauze, or when eunuchs lacquered her nails. She did not speak until the last pin secured a phoenix comb above her brow. Then, while the attendants bowed themselves out, she faced Jin across the hush of an antechamber. You should have warned me more clearly. I tried. Not hard enough, her voice quavered. They say if the beam misses me, you will be banished. If it strikes me, I will never again walk outside unescorted. He closed the space between them. If you wish to escape, say the word. I can smuggle you through the cart pools at midnight. Heaven can choose another. She shook her head. I don't know what heaven wants, but I know what mortals owe each other. You taught me that stars are honest even when people aren't. So I will stand beneath them once, honestly, and let them say their piece. Tears blurred his vision. He kissed her forehead, tasting jasmine powder, and whispered, "Forgive me." The pavilion of arcane lights rose at the palace's heart, its domed roof inlaid with jade mirrored tiles, so that by torchlight it seemed a fragment of night had dropped to earth. Courtiers crowded tiered balconies, gossip flitting like sparrows. The emperor's couch was borne to a dais on the northern rim. Princess Xuan and consort Meng flanked him, each haloed by her clan's banners. Han stood beside the dais, a sheathed dagger visible beneath his sleeve. Guards ushered Rui to the center of the marble floor. A single lantern hung above her, its paper shade painted with the mythic phoenix of fate red wings spread across the vault. Jin took his station by an armillary sphere, quill poised, an inkstone weighing down his nerves. Midnight neared. Already streaks of light peppered the heavens, brief silver scratches erased by darkness. The crowd oohed, but they were not crimson. Not yet. Luo surveyed the hall. "Master astronomer, you guarantee a scarlet beam?" "My charts suggest it will appear at the shower's zenith," Jin replied. Princess Swan smirked. "And if the universe has forgotten its cue?" Jin said nothing. His gaze never left Ru Yi. She stood barefoot on the chilled marble, hands folded, spine straight, eyes lifted toward stars she could not see through the roof's lattice work. Yet she looked utterly serene, as if the scene were only another quiet evening in the observatory. Clock bells told the first pulse of the rat hour. Meteors thickened, fiery threads weaving a net across the sky. A gasp swept the pavilion as one meteor bloomed brighter, redder, trailing sparks like flower petals. "Crimson!" someone shouted. Jin's heart slammed. The meteor arced overhead, its light punching through the roof's oculus, splashing blood-red brilliance onto the marble, 3 paces shy of Rui. A sigh of relief rose from the nobles. Rui's shoulders sagged. Jin's pen snapped between his fingers. The beam had missed. Luo turned to the dais. "Your Majesty, the sign is clear." But Gaozu did not respond. His eyes were half closed, breath shallow. Princess Xuan folded her hands, grieving portrait perfect. Consort Meng dabbed her cheeks. Yet these women stared not at the emperor but at each other, and at Minister Han, who eased his dagger free. Understanding pulsed through Jin, the sudden fever, the urgent succession, the eagerness to favor certain clans. It stank of poison. Tonight's vigil was prelude to a coup. If the beam had crowned Ru Yi, their plot would fail. Now, with heaven apparently ambiguous, they would move. Han gave a curt nod. Soldiers poured from side corridors, crossbows raised. "By decree of the imperial cabinet," Han announced, "the emperor is too ill to rule. Authority passes to an interim regent, Her Highness Princess Xuan." Half the court knelt immediately. The rest hesitated until archers trained bolts on them. Jin stepped toward Rui. Hansa pointed. 2 guards seized Jin's arms. "This man's false prophecy nearly doomed the empire," Han declared. "Escort him to the dungeons." As hands dragged Jin away, he caught Rui's wide eyes. Not fear fury. She wrenched free of her own escort, sprinted across the marble, and seized the fallen lantern pole. With a crack, she smashed the jade tiles of the domed roof. Cold night wind burst in. Above, the meteor shower still blazed, and the crimson one, no, dozens of crimson ones, cascaded now, painting the clouds with coiling vermilion. Light rained through the shattered dome, no longer a single beam, but a kaleidoscope that flooded every corner. Court ladies screamed, archers blinked behind raised arms. In that instant of chaos, Rui hurled the lantern pole like a javelin. It struck Han's shoulder, his dagger clattered away. Jin elbowed his stunned captor, rolled and dove for Rui. Together they dashed to the dais. The emperor's eyes opened, reflecting red starfire. Jin knelt. "Your Majesty." The heavens protest this treason. Gaozu's lips twitched. Was it a smile or a grimace? Then use them, astronomer. Prove loyalty still lives. Jin pivoted to the hall. Behold the myriad crimson beams. Heaven was not uncertain, it was abundant. It anoints this chamber, and at its heart stands Rui of Lingxi. He raised his voice until it echoed. Who here dares claim that heaven shines more brightly upon them than on her? Some courtiers wavered, others glared. The floor felt like a chessboard waiting for its next violent move. Princess Xuan recovered first. Pretty words cannot erase pedigree. She snatched Han's fallen dagger, held it to Gaozu's throat. The dynasty needs blue blood, not kitchen runoff. Step aside. Thunder rumbled. Another meteor burst, closer, so close its sonic boom shattered remaining panes, dousing torches. Embers swirled in the red dark. A charred roof beam crashed between Zwen and the Emperor, knocking the dagger away. Soldiers stumbled back. Jin lunged, grabbed Rui's hand, pulled her onto the dais. The Emperor coughed, blood on his lips. He grasped Rui's wrist. Girl, do you accept the burden? She knelt. If heaven wills it, and if this land needs it, then I accept. Gaozu drew a signet ring from his own finger, a gold dragon biting its tail. With trembling effort, he slid it onto her thumb. Then by star and steel I name you Empress Ru. His voice broke. May you guide Qi longer than I. Silence followed, punctuated only by distant meteors' faint sizzle. Shock rooted both factions. To oppose a dying emperor's last decree, while skies hurled crimson fire, might tempt even bolder lightning. Minister Han, cradling his dislocated arm, spat. Witchcraft. He rallied the archers. Loose, bolts whipped through the air. Jin flung himself before Ru Yi. Something bit his shoulder. He stumbled, but the sting was light. An arrow had nicked flesh, grazing bone. Before the archers could notch again, palace guards, loyal to the throne perhaps, stirred by fear, perhaps by awe, surged from eastern halls. Blades flashed. The pavilion erupted into combat. Thunderous booms from falling meteors shook the stone and flung sparks that stung like hornets. Jin, dizzy, pulled Ru Yi behind the throne platform. We must get you to safety. She tore silk from her sleeve, pressed it against his wound. Not without you. A body crashed nearby. It was Princess Xuan, unconscious, blood trickling from a temple wound. Consort Meng vanished in the melee. Han dueled 3 loyalists at once, then fell beneath a spear thrust. Gradually the skirmish ebbed. Survivors knelt amid wreckage as the last meteors faded into the dawn-touched horizon. Red glow yielded to pallid gray. On the dais, Jin and Ru Yi helped Gaozu recline, but his breaths were almost gone. He smiled faintly at them. The star that led me here has found its next bearer. His fingers tightened on Jin's. Guide her, astronomer. Chart storms before they break. I swear, Jin whispered. Weeks passed. The rebellion dissolved once letters bearing the dragon seal announced Empress Ru's coronation. Dukes who had backed Zuen recited long oaths of fealty. Those who hesitated discovered that crimson meteors could still be seen in the night sky, as though ready to fall again on traitors. In the hall of celestial quiet, Ru Yi received ambassadors. She wore layered silk the shade of dawn tea. Jin stood at her left, robes newly embroidered with 8 pointed stars, his injured arm in a sling. Officially, he was Grand Minister of the Observatory, unofficially, her confidant, perhaps soon her husband, though propriety insisted they wait a mourning year for Gaozu. After the final envoy withdrew, Ru Yi beckoned Jin to a balcony overlooking frozen lotus ponds. Plum blossoms showered pale petals around them. Do you think heaven will regret its gamble? She asked. He gazed at her, the humble tea-girl who now bore the weight of a realm, yet still poured her own cup. If heaven charts by wisdom and kindness, it chose well. Ru Yi touched the signet ring that dwarfed her finger. I will need your maps, and I will need your courage. They looked out across the palace roofs, where fresh snow turned tile to porcelain. Above, faint in daylight, a streak of red lingered, a last ember of the crimson meteors, reminding all who saw that power, like starlight, sometimes shone brightest upon the unlikeliest ground. Rui exhaled, her breath a plume of silver mist. Then let us begin. Jin slipped his uninjured hand into hers. Together they watched daybreak spread across the capital, the first chapter of a reign born not from lineage or steel, but from a midnight sky that had dared to rewrite destiny.